you think you've got everything done. That last 2% that you maybe you don't even know that you have to figure out those details, or that you didn't figure out those details. It's those last 5% of production or thoughtfulness or engineering. This is why you have to have that engineering team, because if you miss that last 5% and you're trying to go it alone, you're going to end up with what exactly you designed, and when you get it here, it's not going to function because there's that 5% that maybe you couldn't think of, or you missed, or your designer didn't put in there, or didn't put thought through, whereas their engineering team would have said, hey, that's not going to work.
Right. We help people with ideas, get them to revenue.
All right, welcome back to another podcast. This is probably going to be 25, right? Mike and I did 24 last week. We had the 23, which is A, B, and C. That's a really good one. I'm Peter Drakulich.
Dan Gagne.
And welcome to another 52 Lunch podcast. So what's the theme today, Dan? This is more your territory, right?
Yeah, it is actually. Finally, I get to talk instead of listening to you talk. These are questions that you ask a potential manufacturer before you hire a manufacturer. Very important step in bringing a product to market. Arguably, in my opinion, one of the most important decisions you'll make along the bringing a product to market.
And I'm going to bring in more because this is your department. I've learned everything I know about manufacturing through Dan at this point. So I've got a few here that maybe aren't questions, but I can phrase them in the form of a question that really surprised me about manufacturing, right? So I'm kind of in more the consumer shoes about what goes on and the process. So,
all right. You want to ask the question?
Well, for me, the biggest surprise was like understanding that manufacturing is highly focused, right? Like a manufacturer that makes something in a certain type of plastic injection molding knows nothing about making it in different materials, right? It's very subjective to the equipment that they've got. They're set up for a process. And I think again, I can see a lot of people, including myself, you go to these, what you call like a manufacturer, and you're like, how come they don't understand what I'm talking about?
Right.
So the question you really have to ask is, are you the right manufacturer for what I'm trying to accomplish?
Yeah, great. That's a great question. And yes, a manufacturer can't be everything to everybody, because you can imagine the cost of equipment first and foremost.
Right.
I mean, an injection molded machine is entirely different than a folding carton machine. It's a totally different investment. And I haven't found somebody that does, A to Z on manufacturing yet. So that is very important. You want to make sure that the factory will coordinate the entire, the entire production order, meaning the packaging needs to get done. If it's injection molding, there might be an outside carton that needs to be done. Both a corrugate carton that the product ships in and an inner carton that has all of the marketing components to that product. So there's several processes that take place, and a lot of manufacturers don't want anything to do with, anything other than what they're experts in, because again, they're going to be held liable for what they do. If they're not proficient in that area, they certainly don't want to be responsible for that.
Well, I hear you say it all the time. Manufacturers manufacture, right? And they only manufacture what you hand them.
Exactly.
And I think that's, again, another area where, I was surprised at how highly focused they are. And I think, again, in my term, when I first started working with you and we were talking to all these different manufacturers and you were teaching me, I was looking at them like, wow, these guys aren't as smart as I thought they were, but that's not true. They're just so highly focused on what they are good at that when you ask them something that's out of that, like you said, I think it really comes down to the equipment that they have.
Right.
They are experts at the equipment they have. They have no idea how to make something with equipment they don't have.
Correct.
And that's...
And again, a selfless plug for 52 Lunch is we've become experts at all facets of manufacturing. We needed to, because we have manufactured products in virtually every space there is, whether it's metal,
Right.
plastics, fabric, folding cartons, injection molding, foam. I mean, we've done it all. So we have to be proficient at all of those. And then again, that's that's an extremely important value add that we bring to the table, is our experience with that. Again, we use it a lot. Most of what people see in us is that we look vertical to everybody, like we've got everything done and ready to go.
Right.
What most people don't see is that we could be relying on 3 different factories to coordinate that entire product. And that's what we're good at, managing that aspect of it. And it's extremely important to literally also pick the right manufacturer to eventually do the fulfillment, which gets back to another question. You want to make sure that your manufacturer is willing to, again, fulfill the entire product into one package for you, because you don't want to be doing it or hiring an outside agency to do it, because, again, that's going to add more costs to the product. You want the factory that you trust the most to get it right. And, again, that's an extremely important process.
Well, and just to piggyback on that, right, you see it when the packaging comes out like crap at the end, right? That's too late when you found out that manufacturer can't do the packaging and fulfillment. And I think a lot of times the question that you really have to ask, like you just said, it's do they have the right supplier as well? Because I highly doubt that they're making the packaging themselves, but they have to have the right partner to complete the packaging for our products and your products or whoever's going out. And I think that's a big if, especially when you're not dealing with the right partner to start with. They generally won't have the right partner to do the packaging.
What do they say? Birds of a feather.
Yeah, flock together.
Exactly. So,
what's that say about us?
Yeah. So, again, getting back to, it is extremely important. You alluded to, having the product look fantastic, but the packaging sucks.
Looks like, yeah.
And again, for those of you that haven't heard this before, packaging sells products. I mean, there are many times when the packaging actually costs more than the product, and that's what's actually selling the product for you. Because, again, if it's in a retail store, there isn't someone standing next to your product selling it for you. Your packaging is selling that product for you. So, again, extremely important to understand that aspect of it. It's something that if you try to go alone and do all of this yourself, I can just tell you that we've seen it more often than not, that something along the way is going to have a glitch, and that glitch is going to cause delays. It's going to cost money. It's going to upset, one of the partners that you've picked, or the manufacturer that you pick is going to get frustrated. And again, it's the whole reason why 52 Launch exists, is that we coordinate that. It's what we do really well. We make sure that the packaging looks as good as the product, and the product looks as good as the packaging. It's extremely important, and we don't accept anything other than perfection on our end. So, and again, perfection sometimes takes a little. It can't
kill profitability, but it needs to.
Well, also takes a little longer, and that's, again, one of the reasons that you can't rush through this process, because if you do, you're gonna eventually make mistakes, and that comes from somebody that's been doing it for 25 years and has probably made 2,500 mistakes. So, it just, it's a process.
Well, and it takes a lot of courage to see something that's wrong and say, stop, let's fix this, and take more time to do it right.
Well, you know what? We just had that happen this week. We didn't, our client came in to look at the packaging. The product's done. The packaging came in. It was we had a custom piece done for a sample to sign off on, and Pete and I both looked at the packaging before the client came in, and we saw some things that we questioned, but we weren't going to say anything to the client until the client looked at the product. The client loved it. They were thrilled and couldn't wait to let's move on and get to the next step, get that product here.
And we could let it go.
And we both looked at each other and said, we love the fact that you love it. That's great. But
here's what we want to do.
Here's what we would change on this. And when we told her that, she immediately said yes. She said she felt like she agreed with us, but she didn't want to say anything. But again, we want to make sure that again, the product looks as good as the packaging and vice versa. And it's really not going to delay any time. But it is a correction that we needed to make happen.
Well, I think we skipped over a question there, and that is, who do you have on your team that is an expert on fine details, right? Because that's, again, when you're asking manufacturers, and manufacturers are going to send it over. And that's a really good example that you showed, because I'll paint the picture. You've all seen a package that hangs on a peg. Well, to the quick eye, everything else that you're looking at, it was very hard to see that little peg hole was off-center, right? So now I understand it was a pre-production sample, so I can understand that there's a leeway, but that is a call out that if you missed, and that wasn't, like, if that's their jig that was set up wrong, that could still be corrected before you approve your final sample. I think most people would have approved it the way it is.
Right.
And the minute a retailer walks by, if you're at a trade show and the minute a retailer walks by you and sees that you've got an off-center hole,
and it's cockeyed, and it doesn't look good,
they're just going to be nice and say, oh, yeah, great product, and move on, right? They're not looking, that's just a telltale sign that you're not ready for them.
Right.
And that's, again, where one of the questions you have to ask is who on your team can oversee it. Again, with us, our processes, we have a team overseas, third-party FQC team that we always go in and do final inspections. But like Dan said, we look at everything before it goes out, before our customers even do, and we're interested in correcting that.
Right. Another question that you would definitely want to ask your potential manufacturer is, do they have in-house engineering, and is that engineering
That's a good question.
at a reasonable cost, if not free? Very, very important, because many manufacturers are going to take your drawings, your CAD drawings, and they are going to make the product based on those CAD drawings. Now, if you have a designer that designed the CAD drawings and missed something, then there's 100% chance that your product's going to get made wrong. That's bad, right? We can all admit that. But more importantly, if your designer is probably a very good designer and he's designed the product, but that product hasn't gone through, and you've probably heard it in other podcasts that we've done, that DFM stage, which is design for manufacturing stage, which means that there's ways to improve upon your product that will make it more cost effective when it comes out of the mold, without changing the essence of the product. Extremely important step, because in the end, if your product is a good one and it starts to sell and take off, there's a good likelihood, even with a patent, that you'll get knocked off. And if you get knocked off, you'll feel very disappointed about that. But you want to make sure that the product is made correctly the first time. So there's less chance of having to go back and redesign it and spend more money recreating a tool or a mold.
You say it, a manufacturer will make exactly what you handed them. So if you, and this goes back, and maybe this is a question, maybe it's not, but they talk about the 80-20 rule. I think in manufacturing, it's almost the 98-2% rule, right? You think you've got everything done, that last 2% that you maybe don't even know that you have to figure out those details, or that you didn't figure out those details. It's those last 5% of production or thoughtfulness or engineering. This is why you have to have that engineering team, because if you miss that last 5% and you're trying to go it alone, you're going to end up with what exactly you designed, and when you get it here, it's not going to function, because there's that 5% that maybe you couldn't think of, or you missed, or your designer didn't put in there, or didn't put thought through, whereas their engineering team would have said, hey, that's not going to work.
Right.
And
so again, another shameless plug for 52 Launch. All of our designers are
they work with our factories.
They're educated at the university that they go to. It's
an engineering school
that we like, an engineering school that we particularly like a lot here in Boston. That they are, their mindset is to design around manufacturers' capabilities, which is why all of our partners have in-house engineering. They offer it to 52 Launch at no cost in most cases. Very rarely do they charge us, and those are under special circumstances, and even then it's extremely cost effective. But again, those conversations are being had during the entire process of design. So our designers are not designing something, sending it to them, and then having them say, no, this won't work. They're constantly communicating back and forth and making sure that product can be manufactured the most cost effective way. And so there's no confusion. When I talked about the patent a few minutes ago, again, doesn't it make more sense to file a patent after your final product is designed?
Of course it does.
Versus going out and getting a patent on a design that someone did for you, but the chances are there's going to have to be changes made so it can be manufactured cost effectively. And
you got my goat. You got my goat. I'm ready to fire up here, because I'm about to say, you know what? I am fucking tired of everybody that thinks they need to get a prototype before they come see us, or a patent before they come see us.
Right.
Because you're just causing more work for everybody.
Right.
Creating a prototype without having the manufacturing knowledge is a waste of time. You have to design your product to be manufactured. And if you're trying to cut corners, or if you're still in validation mode and you're trying to figure out if it's a good idea still to do this or not, then yeah, you can go spend $10,000-$15,000 to go get shitty prototypes done that can never be made to validate your idea.
Well, $10,000 or $15,000 would definitely be more than a shitty prototype.
No,
Shitty prototype would be a few $100. 10 or 15,000.
It would be a pretty prototype that
nice
doesn't work.
prototype.
Right.
It would still end up with shitty results, but it would be a nice prototype.
Exactly.
At that
So
place.
you're again at that point you're still starting over.
Right.
So that's my clip of this show.
Yeah, that is exactly. We always seem to get off topic here, but it always leads back to the same thing.
Yeah.
Please, do not think that getting a prototype really means anything more than you getting to touch and feel your product, because we have not seen yet in 7 years, and prior to the 7 years, I've been manufacturing for 23 other years beyond that. I've never seen a prototype that actually went to production without any changes. It just does not happen. So
Yeah, I'm going to go one step further. We have more success with the prototypes that are made by the individual in their garage than we do by prototypes that have been handed us from a big company.
right.
Right? Because the one that's from the big company, it's designed completely wrong. It's made with parts that they can get off a shelf and glue it together and make it look pretty. Whereas someone who just went out in their garage and made it quickly gets the point across, and that's our job now to design. We need a prototype that figures out function and the way it works is all you need to do.
Right.
You don't need to spend money to do that. Go in your garage and get that done. Go find a friend that can make you a quick version of what you're trying to explain. Don't spend huge money on that, because that should be done at the manufacturing stage.
We just needed a prototype that literally can be made out of whatever you have lying around.
Yeah.
Just the essence of the product, understanding it, and let us do the prototype for you. So, and it's part of our process. So there's no huge fee for that. So, again, that's the important part of it. Is let's eliminate the worry of having to come to us with a prototype. We prefer you not have a prototype. Or at least if you have one, it's a very rudimentary prototype.
Which is fine.
Yeah. Secondly,
like I said, I like
preferred
this.
actually. And then secondly, again, we're hearing this, a lot lately, is that, I need to get that patent done. No, you don't.
No.
You really don't need a patent. I mean, I get it. If you've got all the money in the world, go for it. But a patent to us, anybody that has a patent with us, we're not going to, first of all, you shouldn't get the patent until, you shouldn't file for a provisional patent until the day before we launch your website, right? We make the product public at that point. That way it maximizes the amount of time you have. You have 12 months.
Put your money into a trademark before
Yeah,
you...
exactly. Trademark your product. Again, filing for a patent before we even have the product designed is just a huge mistake. So
everything else can be covered under non-disclosure agreements,
this
in the development process. So,
prototypes, patents, no.
Yeah.
At least for now.
All right. What's your next question? You're going to have to go back and figure out how to number these. So
Yeah.
this is good information.
One of the things that I'm quite certain this isn't really a real term out there, but we use it a lot. Our factories, and mostly our factories are overseas. We call them Walmart certified. And what does that mean? I mean, again, I'm sure it's not a legal term, but would Walmart hire these guys to make a product for them with all of the contingencies and all of the restraints that a Walmart or a Target would have to ensure the product's being made the right way? And again, that's a question that you need to ask is, is your factory Walmart certified? If they have no idea what you're talking about, then they probably aren't the right manufacturer. They may say they've never heard of that term before, but they certainly understand that they have to make sure that they pass all of the, eye tests that Walmart would have if they walked into that facility. Because again, Walmart does do manufacturing directly in China, and their partners have to be certified.
Well, it's a good topic that we haven't gone through, and because look, whose responsibility is it? First of all, it's your responsibility. If you're the product owner, it's going to be your responsibility. And the process really is the factories are vetted or certified, or however you want to call it, Walmart certified, what are they, ISO 9, whatever. Those are standards, but at the end of the day, you need to know you have to get your product third party tested, and again, knowing that the manufacturer that it will pass, that's the important part. you do need to know that there's companies out there that will verify, validate. They're in China, they're in the United States. But you have to have the confidence in your factory that they're producing what you can at the standards that need to be made. If you're doing this in a garage, or if you haven't vetted the factory, you haven't been in it, you're the risk and liability is just ridiculous.
Absolutely. And again, one mistake is going to cost you whatever savings you had to go to market with. It'll be gone, and it's hard to recoup. And again, it's only coming from experience. We've interviewed hundreds of clients that have tried to go to China on their own through Alibaba,
I feel
and basically, they failed. And we just spoke to a gentleman this week who's got a fantastic idea, but it's taken him several years now, and he still hasn't launched because he hasn't found the right partner.
Yeah.
Although he's paid.
He's paid for the right partner. He just didn't get the right partner.
He didn't get the right partner. Another question would be, does the factory accept small quantity orders?
Ooh,
I mean,
you got mine. I was going to ask you.
we're
Talk
not
about MOQs.
when we're talking about launching. Usually, the word launch is synonymous with starting out. So you want to. No one's going to go to market with tens of thousands of pieces. That's a mistake. Let's go to market with something that's relatively small, that you can make sure that your audience likes it. There might be a color change. There might be, some other.
Well, how about just affordability?
Or more importantly, I guess affordability is the
10,000 times $5 is. It's affordability.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, affordability in two ways. Affordability with meaning budget, how much is in your budget to spend, but affordability meaning, again, I keep going back to pitching what we do so well, is because of the sheer volume that we do in manufacturing, and because of our partners are extremely loyal to us as we are them, they offer us higher quantity pricing at low quantities, which really translates to they want to see the product succeed. So they want to give us really good pricing on a small quantity, like 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 pieces. Their pricing should be much higher, but they are starting off with such competitive pricing that they are anticipating a second and third order because they've allowed us the ability to make margin on that. Look, no plant in China, and certainly domestically, wants to take an order for 1,000 pieces of anything. Never mind 500. They just don't want to take that because
they're set up to run millions.
There's
of things.
a lot of
Hundreds
setup
of
time and a lot of work that goes into manufacturing a product. But they also understand that they also want to get to volume eventually, and they know that if they've got a partner like 52, which is going to help the client also market the product, there's a strong likelihood based on history that they're going to get more orders. So they're willing to take that chance with us. As a matter of fact, it's a necessity to work with us, is that they have to be willing to accept small quantities along with big quantities, right? And we give them both.
Well, Mike and I talked last week on the podcast specifically about, it leads to the MOQs, but, again, the reason why we get the minimum quantity orders at the prices that we do is because our team over there and here spends a lot of time also sourcing the materials, right? So when we know that, a roll of, if we're making a soft goods, if one roll produces 8,000 bags and it's cheaper than buying it by the yard, let's get an entire roll and that'll dictate our MOQ.
Right.
If the zippers have a 5,000 MOQ or whatever, so our MOQs are always based on the entire supply chain and maximizing the efficiency without the waste. Because I think that's really where a lot of people say they just throw this number out there, and I think the MOQ stands for minimum quantity order,
right.
And I think a lot of times the factories just throw that out to qualify you, and so let's just talk about MOQs, minimum quantity orders in the United States. What's the average? What do you think the average number would be to do any type of manufacturing in the United States?
Yeah, I mean, again, depending on the part size. I mean, if it's a small component, you're talking hundreds of thousands of pieces. If it's a bigger item, like a cabinet, I mean, you might be able to get away with 500 to 1,000, but you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in costs.
Right. Versus China.
Yeah, China will. We're doing a cabinet order that's 25 pieces. So they'll set up to run 25 pieces for us because they're anticipating the next order to be hopefully 500 pieces. China will make a small injection molded part for us at 2,500 pieces. Here, you'd have to add maybe 1 or 2 zeros to make it here in the United States. And again, we talk about this, more than anything else, is that everybody wants us to make their product in the United States, and we do too. But it's just very difficult to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
All
right, I got a couple of doozies, so you let me know when you're done.
I'm done.
You're done. All right. So I'm going to ask the expert here, which is another question. How important is it to ask about master cartons and shipper boxes when you're in your manufacturing? Explain what happens when you don't have a master carton, or explain what a master carton is.
Yeah. So a master carton is it's just that. It's the master carton. It's the carton that your product goes into. Hopefully, your product that's already packaged.
In a nice box, your package box, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So again, we can share horror stories with you. We certainly have a client now that's going through a traumatic time where a master carton comes in. If it's not made strong and durable, it's going to get damaged. Now, I did say we have a client that's upset. It's by no fault of our manufacturing plant. It's more of a fault between a third party.
In logistics, you have zero control.
Yeah.
So somewhere along the way, someone took the nicely packaged pallets that we had, put them all took 8 pallets and converted them to 3, and of course you're going to have damage to packaging.
Right.
Right. So that's, again, there's a reason why you have a master carton. So if some bonehead along the way does make that decision, you're still protected in a master carton. So
Right.
having the decision to put everything into a master carton, it's not a decision, it's a must.
Right.
In fact, when we quote this out, so this isn't a question, this is a demand that you would make to any manufacturer, is that I want it quoted with master cartons. And then you have to make the decision how many go into a master carton, right?
Right.
So what's the rule of thumb on master cartons?
Well, I mean, you want to keep.
It's got to be under 50 pounds.
Under 50 pounds.
Right.
That's really.
Yeah.
That's
So if you're looking for efficiency to bring as many as you can, then however many you can fit efficiently in a box without breaking the 50-pound barrier is exactly what you're.
Keep it under 25 squared for a box size.
25 by 25 by 25.
Right, and then 50 pounds. But again, that is a very important thing. You do want it. Look, nobody likes to pay for insurance, and we have enough insurance to choke a horse. With what we spend for car insurance, medical insurance, home insurance, and life insurance. I mean, we got tons of insurance. Well, guess what? A master carton is just that. It's another piece of insurance that protects you from the bigger problem, which is damaged products that come over. Because once they're damaged, you need either new packaging, or if the product inside is damaged, now you've got to, now whatever you saved on not having a master carton, you've lost in damaged products.
Well, the easiest place to go and take a look at whether it's needed or not is just go through a grocery store. There's a clerk always opening up
another one too.
Home Depot's a good one. Everything's coming in a master carton, because if it doesn't come in a master carton, it's going to be damaged. So what's the difference between a master carton and a shipper box?
I mean, in some cases it's the same. If I mean that's almost like a trick question.
It is. So would you ship, if you're going to ship something one product in a nice box, would you put a stamp on it and send it out to UPS to ship, or would you put it in a shipper box?
Well, I think I look at the packaging as the master carton houses all of your products that are already prepackaged into a master carton. Whatever type of packaging you have that's protecting or showing off in design your product, that to me is called your custom packaging. I mean, a shipper box is I guess a box you would take off of a shelf to put one of your products into that, taping it, and then putting a stamp on that shipping box.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Okay, that's what you're thinking.
Yeah,
okay.
and I can tell you the question. It's not a question again. If you are doing any type of online retail, or you're shipping out a product to a client, if you're not putting it in a durable shipper box, it is amazing what these carriers, the way they throw your stuff around.
Right.
I mean, it's.
Well, the good news is that you're forced to either buy one from wherever you're shipping the product out, because you can't just ship a product by putting a stamp on it. You actually have to have it inside of a shipper
bag
box.
or a box or something.
Yeah, or some type of outer packaging, single use, single item, packaging, or if you're putting 2 to a box.
And we had a box 101 conversation last week here with one of our box designers. What's the most important thing about a box is what you guys said, air, right?
Yeah, well, but to protect your
Yeah, to
product. Yeah, so the product is protected by air or suspension. So you want your product not to be snug tight into a shipper box with no air around each edge, top and bottom, because as soon as that box is thrown up against the UPS or FedEx or DHL truck, it's going to dent the shipper box. But guess what? It's also going to dent the inner packaging because it's nudged up against it.
Right.
How to protect any product from getting damaged is to keep air around it, which is why people use bubble wrap. The bubble gets wrapped around the product and then put in the box, because that means that the product is not touching any of the corners of the box.
Styrofoam or styrene.
Yeah, like that's why you sometimes get styrofoam in each corner, and the product sits in the styrofoam and it looks like it's suspended in a little, pouch, or essentially, or a little airspace where nothing's touching, the corrugate or the shipper box, which again prevents it from getting damaged.
Yeah. All right. So, how important is it to listen to your manufacturer?
Very important. I mean,
So the question,
if they have something very good to say, which is generally the case.
yeah. So the question really here is it's more that for your question, you have to question yourself if you're questioning your manufacturer. If your manufacturer is telling you something can't be done, you can push them a little bit. You can find answers, but if at the end of the day, if it's you're making the choice to move forward with manufacturing when there's going to be a defect rate, you can't be disappointed in the end, right? You have to accept those facts that listen to your manufacturer.
Correct. Look at we share with all of you folks exactly what it takes to bring a product from napkin to revenue. We've tried our best to explain every process, and
In detail.
every person is capable of doing what we do on their own. The difference is that we've been doing it for 25 years, 30 years. We've made all the mistakes. We know all the questions to ask. We know exactly where to go with your product. So you should not have a conversation where you're getting talked into something that you don't agree with at your manufacturer. We are going to place that product in the right manufacturer, the one that's most capable of delivering the results that we expect. And each factory has their nuances and their expertise, and we know where to go with those. So, again, all the things that we do, anybody can do. What most people don't have the time, the patience, and the intestinal fortitude to go through the process, and take 3 years to do it. So that's the big difference between trying to do it on your own and working with a professional company that's done it over and over and over again.
Well, we heard it this week, right? It was the same gentleman we were talking about earlier,
Yep.
where he said it took me about 8 or 9 months, and I thought it felt like we were 99% there, and then at the end they just said, "No, we can't quote this."
Right.
Right. So when you put that much effort
After
into
giving them samples
after giving them all the
and the
things, probably
samples look
spending
good, they just realized that it
wasn't a good fit for
it
them.
wasn't a good fit for them, and now he's left to go find another manufacturer, and now he's delayed in getting his product to market. He had to put it on the back burner. COVID hit. He lost his zest and excitement for the product until he saw us on TV and realized that it might be another option for him. So
Right.
that's kind of that's kind of pretty much every client that calls us.
Well, and so that's where you can ask all these top 10 questions, but the reality comes down to there's expertise that you cannot learn without having been through this. Right?
Right.
And again, I'm talking more as I'm the protege here in this relationship when it comes to manufacturing. I'm not saying I was equal to you, but there's still things that I understand now a lot more than I did by being involved and learning and getting there. But there's expertise that goes into manufacturing that without it, I fear for anybody that tries to go this alone. Takes an entire team, so I wouldn't recommend that. So
if it makes you feel any better,
Yeah.
you have taught me patience, and that's hard to do for somebody my age. But
I don't feel like I've won that battle yet. But.
Well, it's a lot better than it used to be. But that's something else that you need.
You do.
People
need
is that you
patience.
need
Well,
patience, and it's hard.
What do I always say, right? It's I think it's the AA. It's the Serenity quote, right? Like, grant me the wisdom to fix the things I can, the courage to, the wisdom to know the difference, something like that. It's I'll get you the quote, but it's you
I've
really
heard you
just
say it.
Yeah, there's just a patience motto here, right? Have the courage to fix things you can, have the patience to endure the things that you can't change, and then the wisdom to know the difference. That's the quote.
That's it in essence. Yep.
So I got the bonus question here.
Yep.
And since it's the topic of choice, and it seems like this week we've had a lot of people, and there's a lot of news about what's going on in China and Taiwan. And is China ever not going to be the manufacturer for the entire world?
Well, so we personally hope not, because that would destroy our business. But guess who else's business it would destroy?
Right.
Like Apple would be out of business.
We'd be number 9 millionth on that list of people that would be destroyed.
Right.
So why is China so much better than in manufacturing than the United States?
Well, they've made
and look at this is not unpatriotic.
No, it's not at all.
We certainly wish that this wasn't the case, but there's good reasons, and we're talking about having seen these factories that we're in, even sending our team over there and having people over there. Just give us a glimpse as to why
let me
change.
expound upon what you just said. We are proud to be living in this country.
Yep.
And would certainly go out. I would go out of my way to buy an American-made product as well, and I have. But we live in a different time today than we did 50 years ago. Totally different time, and I would imagine all of you understand that. We are not the manufacturing country that we used to be.
What do we manufacture as a country? Medical, right? Like I went by our old location, Santa Fe. My God, that place is like
huge
3
now.
blocks long, right? That used
I
to
see all the drugs advertised on TV now from Santa
right.
Fe.
So it's pharmaceuticals. Glad to know that they're made here. So when I'm taking them, I know what's in them, or I can trust it's in them.
Yeah.
Military. Where's all the military? DOD, right? Department of Defense.
Yeah, Raytheons of the world.
Raytheons of the world.
Yeah.
That's going to hurt Massachusetts. They're moving.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're moving to Washington.
Well,
so
that makes
they're
us
going closer to the money.
It makes us safer because guess who gets bombed
first,
or at least in the top 3.
Yeah, that's what they
Washington D.C. and then Boston
we're
because
in the
of all of our
belt.
all of our technology for defense is right here in 495. So
that's another big
we live
one.
way too close to 495, by the way. But anyway,
So there is manufacturing in the United States. It's just
it's done for companies that will spend top dollar, and that's the military and pharmaceutical companies will
medical,
spend all the money in
devices,
the world.
all that stuff. Yeah.
So again, China's invested in the equipment and the machinery, and I can tell you firsthand because I've seen it. Our factory's machinery is state of the art. It's literally, just close your eyes and imagine what an Apple factory looks like, and that's exactly the type of factories that we work with. Is that they are clean, they're unbelievable equipment that they've purchased.
Well, that's what you said at the beginning, and that ties into the cost of that equipment for someone here in the United States to set up just an assembly line with a plastic injection molding with components that you can put together, an assembly and some mechanical parts into that. We're talking tens of millions of dollars.
Absolutely. We learned it earlier last year when we had a client that wanted to make a product in the United States because that's where the original product was manufactured.
Yep.
And she went and hired a consultant, and the consultant told her, it's going to cost you several $1 million. Was it 20 million, I think, or whatever it was?
Just the EPA fees would have been $10,000
that has
a
nothing
month.
to do with the EPA. That was just the equipment alone to manufacture this part. Never mind all of the hoops they'd have to jump through with EPA, which is a whole nother set of problems that you'd have to deal with that are much harder today than they were back in the 50s and 60s. So anyway, again, we want to try to make it here. We've gone out of our way to get products quoted here. It's just you don't want to see the numbers that you're going to get, and you can't. I mean, you can't. You can't climb that mountain. If we were able to do it, then again, all of our electronics would be made in the United States, and they're not. All of the toys are not made in the United States; they're made in China. It's just that's just the nature of the beast. And so to get back to your original question, what happens if China invades Taiwan? Well, if they invade Taiwan, and nothing's going to, I mean, we're going to be upset, but
It's one of those too big to fail situations.
We're upset
because the
with a
entire
lot of
world,
countries, but we still do business with them. I mean, that's, business is different than, than personal feelings or politics. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of companies that purchase products from China. A lot of
globally,
very large companies,
Globally.
and business is going to continue to come out of that country.
And let's put it this way: that's where it's different, because there is an economy there that China is the world's manufacturer, and for them to do something that would cause a cataclysm, and even for them that they couldn't. Look at China has an economy too, that they COVID, all the costs, they can't afford to stop in there. They're a production company. They got to keep producing. If they don't produce, and it's because they've done something stupid, I just don't see that becoming the outcome. And I think that this is going to be geopolitically, it's certainly a possibility, but it's been a possibility for almost 60 years. So let's agree on this. If it does happen, the entire world's got bigger problems. So until that happens, let's just go and make products. That's the way we got to keep focused.
Correct.
So
good. I think that covers pretty much all the questions that you should ask.
I think this ties in really well with the podcast 23 that Mike did, because we talked really about supply chain and being vertical and not vertical. So this is more specific about questions that you want to ask your manufacturer. I think until next time, this was a great podcast. And again, we'll keep teaching you. In the meantime, like us, follow us, share us. I could say tweet about us now, because I think Elon's going to change the Twitter. But subscribe to our channel. That's the important thing. If you know an entrepreneur or someone looking to get an idea or product to market, send them our way. Our consultations are always free. We answer our emails directly. Dan and I are the only ones that talk to every new client. And our team is ready to go and bring your idea to market.
Yeah, and we got a great podcast coming up about it.
Yeah.
Something really cool.
Yeah. I have it written down if we had time today.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything about it, but it's pretty amazing. And it was developed by somebody within our organization that really hit a home run with this one. So anyway, we can't wait to share that with you.
All right, guys.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
Bye.